I was 19 and desperately needed a job. After weeks of searching, I finally landed a night shift position at a small grocery store in a sleepy town just off the freeway. The job seemed straightforward enough: stocking shelves, cleaning aisles, and locking up at midnight. Easy money, or so I thought. The store manager, Mr. Jacobs, handed me the keys my first night, saying something cryptic about keeping an eye out after 10, but I didn't think much of it. I just assumed it was his odd sense of humor or maybe some late-night shoplifters to watch for. For the first couple weeks, things went smoothly. I'd clock in at 4 p.m., handle a steady stream of customers until about 10, and then I'd have 2 quiet hours to myself, restocking and cleaning up. Honestly, I enjoyed the silence. That was until the night things started to change. It was around 10:30 p.m. on a particularly slow Tuesday. The store was empty except for me. I was finishing up restocking canned goods in aisle 3 when the automatic doors at the front slid open. I glanced over but saw nobody enter. Strange, but I figured maybe the sensor malfunctioned. I returned to work, but a moment later, the doors opened again, this time accompanied by a faint gust of cool air. Annoyed, I approached the entrance, figuring some local teenagers were messing around. But when I stepped outside, the parking lot was empty, bathed in the pale glow of a flickering streetlight. No cars, no people, just silence. I shook off the feeling, walked back inside, and went back to restocking. Not 5 minutes later, I heard something fall from a nearby shelf. A soft but distinct thud. When I checked, a single box of cereal lay in the center of aisle 5. I looked up, expecting to see more items precariously placed, ready to fall. But everything else was neatly aligned. Maybe it just fell, I rationalized. But soon after, other things started happening. Each night, around the same time, odd occurrences would pop up. Boxes mysteriously toppled over, cold gusts of air from nowhere, flickering lights. Even the automatic doors randomly opening and closing, as if someone invisible walked through. It was unsettling, but I desperately needed the paycheck, so I ignored it. Then came the night that pushed everything over the edge. It was close to midnight, and I was locking up. I turned off the store lights, leaving only the soft, orange glow of the emergency lights above each aisle. The silence was heavy. Just as I headed for the door, I heard something. Footsteps, quick and quiet, moving toward the back storage room. I froze, listening carefully. Silence again. I moved slowly down the main aisle, peering into each row. Empty. But just as I turned back toward the front, a whisper reached my ears, soft and low, like someone talking just beyond my hearing. My heart pounded as I followed the sound. It led me to the darkened doorway of the storage room. Hands trembling, I clicked on the flashlight from my phone. Boxes, shelves, stacks of products. Nothing seemed out of place at first glance. But then, as I moved the beam slowly across the back wall, I saw something. Footprints. Small, barefoot, muddy footprints, impossibly placed, halfway up the wall, as if someone had walked vertically across the surface. I stared, pulse quickening, when the whispering started again, louder now, coming from deeper in the storage room. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity or fear held me in place. I took one hesitant step forward. That's when something moved. A dark figure shifted behind a stack of boxes, just out of reach of my flashlight's beam. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping my phone. "Who's there?" I called out, voice cracking with nerves. Silence. Suddenly, A stack of boxes crashed loudly to the floor just inches from my feet. I turned and sprinted out of the storage room, nearly slipping as I raced for the front doors. But as I reached the entrance, something caught my eye. Standing at the far end of aisle 3, barely illuminated by the dim orange emergency lights, was a small figure, a child-sized silhouette, completely still. I froze, breathing rapidly. The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood perfectly still, watching me from the shadows. "Are you okay?" I stammered, barely able to speak. The figure tilted its head slightly as if confused by the question. Then, in a voice far too deep and hollow for any child, it simply whispered, "Stay." Panic surged through me. Without another thought, I turned and bolted from the store, fumbling with keys, locking the door as quickly as I could. Shaking, I backed away from the entrance, half expecting something to slam against the glass. But there was only quiet darkness staring back at me. I never returned to that store again. A few days later, I handed in my resignation to Mr. Jacobs. He didn't seem surprised at all. When I asked about the strange things I'd experienced, he just sighed and nodded. He told me quietly about the property's past, how the store was built on land that had once belonged to an old orphanage, abandoned decades earlier after unexplained disappearances. Stories about figures, shadows, voices, all reported over the years, but always dismissed as folklore or imagination. Maybe it was just imagination. Maybe I let my fears get the better of me. But on nights when I pass that store, long after it's closed, I can't help but glance through the windows. And sometimes, I swear I see a small shadow standing in the aisle, motionless, waiting in the dark. Maybe Mr. Jacobs knew exactly what he was talking about when he told me to keep an eye out after 10. But it's not my problem anymore, because I'll never work a night shift again.